Restorative justice, by our definition, is fundamentally a set of values that prioritizes healing for offenders, for victims, for their families, for the affected communities. It's a lens through which we can look at crime and conflict and hurt and ask, what is the highest possible healing that can be achieved now that this crime, this hurt, this wrongdoing has been done?
The Another Way conference, which we held here on June 3 and 4, began with poetry reading, which was one of the best that I've ever been to.
A degree of history with a pinch of spicy misery as its seasoning, sprinkled over centuries of my ancestry. You don't believe? Come get a taste of me, so you can understand why descent is indigenous to my inner fields that yield crops of insurgency. You see, I'm a product of war. My melanin carries a legacy that on hot summer days it don't hesitate to seep through my pores. I sweat droplets of Mexico's 1910 revolution. I sweat the spirit of Emiliano Zapata screaming, I'd rather die fighting on my feet than live a lifetime on my knees. In my eyes, pupils, you can see Pancho Villa writing for the stolen land Uncle Sam in 1846 took from Mexico's hands. My fingertips, the contours on them resemble the fields where to this day farm workers harvest the crops dropped off at local stores. Yet at the border, they closing the doors. I think they forget America be sustained by immigrants from all over the world. Give them amnesty, full citizenship, and more. Yo, but my feet never walked it. I never made the journey from Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador. I'm a seed of immigrant parents, father from Veracruz, mother from a pueblo outside Mexico City.
The formal conference, I suppose you could call it, was on Saturday, June 4th. We were hoping during the planning stages that we might have 70, 80 people show up. We had, I think, about twice that number. We had well over 120 people come.
This conference is the result, first, because of Professor Scott Wood, who had the vision to create a Center for Restorative Justice here at Loyola Law School about 3 years ago. It's really the first center of its kind at any law school on the West Coast, and we are founded on the principle that justice does not need to mean punishment. It does not need to mean retribution, and justice can mean something closer to balance and closer to healing.
My problem is with the public's enthusiasm for holding juveniles liable as adults.
We had a keynote presentation by Professor Sam Pillsbury, who was the founder of the Center for Juvenile Law and Policy at Loyola Law School.
The highlight were two panels. The morning panel with Sheriff Baca, Mr. John Dacey, the president of LAUSD, and Judge Michael Nash, who's the presiding judge of the juvenile court. That panel was moderated by Professor Maureen Pacheco.
So in California, we pay $58,000 a year to house an inmate. And we pay $4,700 a year to teach a kindergarten student. So there's two problems with that math. One of the problems is the moral underpinning of that math formula. And the second problem is it doesn't work.
After the panels, we broke into discussion groups, and these were moderated by different mediators and facilitators. The groups were focused on education, on community involvement, on victims' rights, and on rehabilitation for offenders.
And then we had Azim Kamisa, this extraordinary leader for restorative justice for many years now.
And unless you forgive, you remain a victim. There may be no other way to go forward.
After Azim's presentation, we had a panel we entitled From the Bottom Up, and this included the founder of the Every Child Foundation, Jacqueline Castor, the founder of the Youth Justice Coalition at the Charter High School Free LA, Kim McGill, the co-director of the Office of Restorative Justice of the Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles, Javier Storing, as well as Pastor Ruat Foster, who also is the father of a murdered son and has also, like Azim, been a champion for the forgiveness movement for restorative justice.
Communities looking at and living out and embracing the restorative justice model of restoring these young people back to a place of innocence or truth or empowerment, understanding, back to a place of love. It would be an amazing place. Some think maybe unimaginable, but I believe step by step attainable.
After From the Bottom Up conference, we had an award presentation. This award was named after Frankie Carrillo.
About 3 or 4 years ago, Ray, who was then volunteering at Folsom Prison as a Catholic chaplain, told me about an inmate named Frankie Carrillo. And it was generally well known that Frankie was innocent. Notwithstanding he had been in Folsom at that time about 16 years, going on 17.
My name is Frankie Carrillo. I'm originally from Southern California. When I was 16 years old, I was accused of a murder I did not commit. I found out that there was a witness who had identified me in a photo lineup. You know, I was determined, and I knew that, you know, I wasn't the guy. I knew I was home that night with my family, with my dad, and they were mistaken. So my whole thinking was, get me in front of a judge, get me in front of someone that can hear my story so this can be over with. I was only 18 years old when I hit the system initially, and just looking for someone to hear my story. You know, writing letters, you know, trying to raise money, just trying to do everything I can to bring some attention to my cause. It took literally about 16 years to get the people that I needed to surface and come to my rescue, pretty much. A woman by the name of Ellen Eggers surfaced through a friend who actually worked at the prison, Tony Carter, who met Ellen Eggers and shared my story with her. And soon after, Ellen Eggers notified Morrison and Forster and the California Innocence Project to you know, consider my case. And you know, because of Ellen and everyone else involved, she was able to convince the law firm and the Innocence Project to take my case on. And they had my case about for 4 years before it eventually reached the courts, and the evidence needed to prove my innocence surfaced.
And despite the injustices that were done unto him, he is not a bitter person. And much like many of the inspiring people that we've been hearing today, he is a forgiving person. And so because of his capacity to forgive, because of his capacity to be who he has inspired us, and he's inspiring many, many other people. He's contributed so much to the Center for Restorative Justice that we really felt compelled to name an award after him.
We were stunned because in the middle of all this, we had a veteran deputy DA who told us that he had a long history of being you know, a zealous advocate trying to lock kids up, coming down to tell everyone assembled there that he had really changed, that he was now an advocate for restorative justice.
With certainty, prosecutors need to do what's right. And what happened in your case, you know, I apologize for.
It was very stunning, and I think put a spotlight on, you know, one of the major goals of this whole conference, which is not only for activists in restorative justice to be talking to themselves, but to talk to people that really don't understand this movement or even who don't agree with it.
So we gave our first annual Frankie Carrillo Award
aka the Frankie.
After Frankie, so this is the Center for Restorative Justice at Loyola Law School, Los Angeles, Francisco Frankie Carrillo Award.
And we gave it to a Hollywood producer named Scott Budnick, who is most famous for the movie series of The Hangover and Due Date and other comedies, but who in his spare time, which is not very much, but he certainly does a lot with it, he mentors probably over 300 young people.
Today's event was eye-opening and refreshing for me because it brought together many people that I've never heard of, many people that are doing great work to make sure that transitions are in motion, and that people who have been taken away from society for whatever reason and are coming back home now have a chance to succeed.
I'd like to invite you to join me in 1 minute of silence so that we may be in solidarity with the people that we are doing this for, particularly the youth that are incarcerated, the adults who were incarcerated as youths, the victims of violent crime, the families of those people, and all of those who are connected to this juvenile justice system.